we had some fascinating presentations by young people showing us how bright the future is when it comes to techpreneurship in Ghana. And now we're going to have the discussion about what support looks like for these bright entrepreneurs. Who's going to be there to guide them, to support them in the initiatives that they're creating? Well, to moderate this discussion, Dr. Gordon Adomdza is here from Ashesi University. He's an associate professor here. So we'd like for him to join us on stage here.
Welcome, panelists. So as sorry, I don't know my name. As she said, we saw the wonderful presentations this morning, right? And so if you can just sort of keep that in mind and ask yourself, how do we support these young men and women to persevere in the work that they're doing and be successful? And as you know, our panelists have done that. They do that really well. So we're going to start with them talking very briefly about themselves and also the companies they represent and the work they do. And then we'll talk about the kind of support they provide young techpreneurs. Let's start with you.
Good afternoon, all. As you know, I'm Kerry, and I am the Senior Fellow for the training program at MEST. And every year we bring in roughly 60 individuals from across the continent who we train in business communications and tech skills with the intent to create businesses and drive other businesses to grow as well as their own in this country and in many others. And I can talk at length about MEST, about our organizations, but really the outcome of my work is what you saw on stage this morning. And I prefer to let a lot of that speak for itself. So cheers to Jumeni, developers in Vogue, AF Radio, and I'm going to miss many others, but those were 3 presentations that I got to see and very much appreciate that I can come into this room and be the one who is sitting in the audience and they are teaching me something. And I think fundamentally we, at MEST, get the opportunity to learn from each other and bring in individuals who are of high caliber, and they can help us to create nuanced businesses for the Ghanaian market and the West African market and the continental market as well. And we look forward to bringing in more young people in the next couple of years. And I'm proud to say that we started with only 3% female population of a cohort and now have 36. And I'm pushing that to 50 over the next year or so. And so Jamila and Ada and the developers and Vogue team that you saw is a representative of that as well. So I would like to say thank you to all of our companies more so.
My name is Ernie and Ofori from the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. Basically, we've been working for the last 15 years, and our focus has been to try and address the digital divide, bringing the opportunity to create innovation communities around by providing the necessary capacity building, and also encouraging people to move into the sector. So we have special programs looking at gender divide, for example, how we get more people within the space in that area. We have programs to do, for example, right now, one of our focus is targeting digital beyond Accra. You can see we're doing quite well. There's a lot of work and progress in Accra, but as soon as we get out of the Accra and the key cities, the divide begins to widen. So we have quite a number of programs trying to make sure that these improvements we are making don't only happen in Accra, but happen beyond. We're also targeting different sectors. We initially when we started, we thought all we needed was, get the technology there and everything will be okay. But there's also the issue to do with even usage, that when you build something, people should be able to use it. And so we have to look at it in a very comprehensive way, not just one-sided. So how do we get enterprise to consume the things we produce? How do we get civil society to consume the things we produce? How do we get different communities to also understand the requirements of these groups? So these are quite a number of areas that we look into, and then we support both private and public partnerships to try and develop the community as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Senyo, and I'll start with a caveat. If at any point you see me doze off, it's not because my co-panelists start worrying, it's because I haven't had sleep and there's not enough adrenaline to counter that. So I'll try to stay awake the entire time, but if you see it, it's not a slight to anyone. I lead the Impact Hub, and Impact Hub has been around for nearly 6 years. April will be 6 years since we started this social experiment. What happens when you take very young, energetic, driven people and put them on steroids, essentially, with as many resources as possible? What would they be able to do? And our experiment, for the most part, a few ones haven't gone great, but for the most part has been spectacular, to the point that we've reached a point where we are evolving, and the learnings of the last 5 years is leading us to rethink what it means to support early innovators. So the new paradigm and ethos of our work is let's cluster. So what we are doing now is we are taking a 1 square kilometer of a part of our city and literally re-engineering it on the core infrastructure side, laying Google Fiber, which we did 2 years ago, building green energy, making sure that the mainstreaming efficiencies in the broader Ghanaian ecosystem that makes all business too difficult. We build buffers for early stage innovators. So how do you bring efficiency to innovation for the earlier stage innovator? And that's going to be our work for the next half decade. For most people, when we say young in Impact Hub Accra, let me put it in perspective. It's mostly post-grad. Most of our innovators have some higher level of education, so it's also slightly elitist in the way we pick what innovators we work with, and we are trying to understand how we can make it more inclusive. So that's the other part of our work right now. How do you make sure that unlikely innovators can emerge in spaces like ours? And so that is the full spectrum of our work, working mostly with local partners and global investors. And we want to believe that over the next 5 years, we can convene 1,000 people in a 1 square kilometer area and build a community of people who are the brightest and best in our view to shape the future of tech in Ghana.
David Ofori. I help run the Accra Digital Center, and I probably want to ask a question, apart from those who know us in the audience. How old do you think the Accra Digital Center is? We are just under 18 months old. We are a startup of the startups, but as our tagline goes, driving digital innovation. And how do you do that as a driver? We seek to bring on board all the players that are here, both from startups, accelerators, incubators, to micro SMEs, all the way through to the big BPOs. And our job really is to become the nerve center of Ghana's digital innovation. So mainly we offer office spaces, but anybody who has dealt with us know that we go beyond that, where even this event, we're trying to say, let's make it possible. However way we can help. We are a startup, but we try not to focus too much on our startup status, but to try and see what best we can do. So sometimes we offer things like events, organizing things like training up what we call the bottom of the pyramid folks, to also give them basic IT skills. We do all that here, and also offer things like value-added services, where if a client needs a digital resource by way of human resource, we can help you get them wherever they are. Our focus really is to say, if anybody got to our borders, whether through the land, sea, or air, and said, I want to do something tech, and they come to Accra Digital Center, they should be able to find a solution. We aim to be, well, currently we are the foremost science and technology park in Ghana, and we will seek to push this to the frontiers and have it this across the country, and not just Accra, because Accra is not Ghana, and Ghana is bigger than Accra. So that's what mainly we seek to do, but I'll say more on what we're doing in other areas as the conversation develops. Thank you.
Hello everyone, so my name is Favor and I run operations at iSpace Foundation. We very focused on grassroots entrepreneurs, so our job in the ecosystem is to find entrepreneurs who don't have the opportunity to develop their ideas, but yet they have great ideas. So we focus on those individuals, we build the capacity, we teach them web development and give them all the skills that they need to thrive in the ecosystem. We develop several programs to engage the community that we target, and we very focused on kids also as a way of stimulating or facilitating the next generation of tech in Ghana. Thank you.
There are entrepreneurs here who are listening to this and saying, maybe we need to go talk to this guy or go talk to this other person. We are very much aware of from what you've told us and what we know, we have a good sense of how to support entrepreneurs, right? But can we talk about some of the things that maybe the audience might not expect, right? Some of the sort of insights about how, or things you've done that really helped entrepreneurs that are not normally things you find on Google, if you will.
So I've been racking my brain around this for the past week. And they said, Kerry, you work at MEST. We are set up to support entrepreneurs. It's our entire mission is to help people who have talent, which exists everywhere, access opportunities which are not everywhere, right? But before you can do that, before you can get to be really crackerjack innovators, you have to learn how to work together to solve problems. So the first thing that we did this year when our recent cohort came in was not tech at all. We took our cohort to the botanical gardens at Legon and had everyone go up on the high ropes. And it was an experiment of mine. And when I saw everyone go up on the ropes, I said, what did you do? But the thing that came out of it was people were much more willing to face their fears. And 51 people who did not know each other and were from all over this continent, started to encourage each other and offer ways to get across these very, very high and unstable set of ropes. Okay. And even now, some of our young entrepreneurs are coming back to me and saying, oh, now that I'm approaching my first big project, I'm remembering what that fear felt like. So one of my goals as an educator, and hopefully an inspirational one occasionally, is to get people to face fear. And we do that outside of labs, and we do that outside of Google, and we do that through often very physical and tangible activities. Another example of that, which I won't go into at this moment, is prototyping. I'm a huge advocate for design thinking and using very physical means, right down to building stuff. Currently bothering one of our carpenters to help me on a project to get our students to start building stuff with their hands. Because I really do think that we get really stuck in our heads sometimes, and in such we also get siloed as individuals, individual leaders. When really we need to get our hands dirty and start working with other people to solve problems which are sometimes too much for us to tackle alone.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the issues that I touched on earlier on that concerns us, looking at where the divide actually is and how we can fail in those places. So we tend to do a lot of research trying to understand why some things don't work. If you take gender, for example, over the years we've had to do a number of experiments trying to understand why is the number still low when we're trying very hard to get it. So today we do programs where we found out that if, for example, you grouped girls alone in the room, they do much better than if you mix them. It may be not for the long term, but at least immediately right now, it's a way to get them on board. So there are a number of use cases, there are cultural reasons, there are social reasons that create some of these barriers, and we have to work continuously to identify them and use that to close the differences that we have. We've gone to rural areas to train in technology because we found out that when they come to, say, Accra, where other resources are fine, and then they go back to their normal places, that's the end of the story because they have no idea how to get anything to work. So instead of they coming here, we rather go to them. And there are lots of things we learn ourselves when we are far in those places where the resources are different, the conditions are different. Many things from language to exposure to access to everything is different, and it helps us learn a lot more how we can get those areas also in an inclusive way to be part of our digital community.
Okay, so I'll take this from two angles. The first is what we've learned in the last 6 years around what works and what doesn't, especially when it comes to that whole demographic we're talking about. We would all agree, if there's anyone who disagrees here, I'd like to know. Our country is a very inefficient country. For every dollar spent, we don't get enough bang for that. Broadly speaking, it's a wasteful economy. Now, what is happening to tech is that we are bringing those same inefficiencies to how we innovate and how we do things. So when you take that component and then you add a layer of complication, which is that when we talk about young innovators, they are some of the most strapped in terms of access to capital or resources. Now add the inefficiency of the broader kind of mainstream economy to their unique constraint of just not having too much access to anything. And what you have is that you have two layers of complication to go get over to get products to market. Now, if that is inherently the problem most young innovators have to deal with, then there has to be pragmatism in how they approach things. So one of the first things we are seeing is that because of the global hype around app culture, the earliest route to any young innovator is to create an app. But consumer-facing app products are heavy on marketing and customer user acquisition. So a lot of the people here who have brilliant apps, someone said this to me recently and I said, this is really true. He says, West Africans are great software developers, Indians are shitty software developers, but they are great hardware people. And he thinks some of the best marriages you can have is Chinese, sorry. Chinese are great hardware people and Ghanaians are, West Africans are software people. So we do create killer apps. Like I've seen young Ghanaians here do some amazing work. The question is, it's not how great the app is or how React works across platform. That is not the question. Is can you get to users? And do you have the war chest to do that battle? And a lot of Ghanaian young innovators cannot fight that battle and win anything. So the question, what we are slowly building is what is the line of least resistance to building products that establish people as executors that can be trusted, so they can actually maybe on their second round of building something they can get access to what they need. And what we are seeing is that more kind of products that are quiet and push things in the back, don't have the flash and all the t-shirts and all of that, get to go to market because they can target niche markets and kill it there. So the same way what we call Silicon Valley didn't start with Uber. It started with actual building silicon chips. So what is our version of silicon chips? And what are young Ghanaians building now that will establish them as hardcore innovators, that will build the confidence of the other side, those with the resources to be able to do that. So I think even in this room, there's someone I saw who built a product that MTN uses for tracking. I thought I saw him earlier. But no one knows this. No one knows this, but he's making bank, right? Now, his second rodeo in trying to build something, he'll come with a slew of, people who would back him on the next thing. So the point I'm trying to make is that for young people, knowing what's working against you should kind of dictate which direction you go and what you build. You may build something that you are not passionate about, because we are all told to build things we are passionate about. But if you have the skills to build something that gets you into market and validates you as someone who can be trusted, do that first. And let it feed into an existing value chain. People can pay for it, and then you can come back and build that bells and whistle app that you've also always wanted, but now with resources that can actually get it to market.
I like where you took it from, Ernie. I think from the video we saw from Tech in Ghana conference in London, the Honorable High Commissioner said that Ghana must be creators of tech and not just consumers. And I think that we seem to have a lot of activity going on in the tech space, but very little really global frontiers to show. I mean, very little to show in terms of breaking the global frontiers. And as a digital center, this is where we think that we can play a role. So I cite the example of who remembers the 3D glasses that we had. It's for 3D TVs. It was innovative, but it wasn't practical. At some point, if you have 2 glasses at home and 3 friends come around, who does without the glasses? So as innovative as that technology was it practical? Was it scalable? How many glasses are you going to buy in your house? So sometimes we get into the fray of being busy, trying to do something, showing that I'm also in the tech space. But really, how much of it is really scalable? How much of it is really any new revenue? Because if it's not any new revenue, you can't move much, you can't impact much. Sometimes the business mindset would have to say that I have to be very shrewd, very quote-unquote wicked today, so that I can be generous tomorrow. Because what you have today is not enough to go around in a room. You have to be very, very tight on the resources you have. And that means that you have to be tight on your money, tight on your time, tight on your innovation, so that you can build a very solid foundation like the bamboo tree, where the roots go very deep, and before you see it shooting up, it goes very, very high. As a science and tech park, we have seen that tends to be the trend, where a lot of young people are getting busy, are very, very enthusiastic. They got a lot of energy, a lot of adrenaline. But how do you channel this into even if we had just one global headline up, just one can change everything. Uber has changed so many things in our current dispensation. So we seek to bring together now we've soon to be launched the Innovation Hub, which is here at Accra Digital Center, and also the Tech Lab. These are areas where young guys will be incubated, accelerated through the process, a very robust process. And there's also a grant attached to that, where once your idea and your whatever product you come up with is fit for purpose and can go to the market, you get some financial support, free grants to push you. Also, the support we give to our SMEs. So if you go around here, we currently have close to about 30 SME companies working within the Science and Tech Park here. And sometimes the support you will give is sometimes as basic as, okay, can I get maybe a respite from paying rent? Because that period of that respite is not for free. At least you delay paying rent, but that delay meant that they can do something critical to their business. that hitherto, if you took the money from them, the business will collapse. Because business do go through cycles, pits and troughs. So as a tech park, where do we draw the line where we have to stay sustainable, not necessarily profitable, sustainable because we have to keep the lights on. We should be able to support programs like Tech in Ghana Conference, and we need to have the money to be able to do so. But at the same time, we also have to be able to work with our SMEs in their difficult moments so that Ghana wins, because bottom line is that we have to do it ourselves and nobody else. We also host the bigger players who can come in and say, look, if you want $2 per square meter, I can pay you 2 years rent without even blinking. Those ones, they bring the big bucks that can help us support the SMEs, because at the end of the day, I can have some money in the bank to pay the bills, to push other things, to offer free training. So from next week, for instance, we're offering free training to people called the pyramid. If you noticed, with our gold, with our timber, sometimes the communities around these resources don't get to benefit immediately. We always have to bring in people from outside of the resource area to work within that. The tech park is located here. How does someone within a 3-mile radius get to work here, and not necessarily someone from East Legon or someone from Tema coming all the way to work in a park? So we have to give them some basic digital training skills to equip them, to get them ready, get them prepared. And this is all sponsored by the Science and Tech Park Accra Digital Center. I think, of course, through the government of Ghana helping us with those funds. So we have to make sure we lobby around, get the funding to provide some of these free training. Last year, we offered free training for people to come and learn here. We brought in resource persons from the US to come and even teach skills like ethical hacking and things like that. These are all activities that, as young as we are, under 18 months old, we still are pushing, because Ghana is behind. We're doing a lot in terms of the tech space, but we're still behind if you compare us to some of our peers. And we think that there's also a lot of opportunities for us. Some neighbors within the sub-region, like Liberia, like the Gambia, they are far behind us in terms of technology. Can we double up our efforts to be able to even think of exporting technology resource to them? Like human resource. If someone came to us and said, I need, let's say, 10 CCNA certified resource, can we get that for them immediately without blinking? If someone needs an app developed from, say, Portugal, and they're looking for the resource person in Ghana, can we find that? And that's where we think that as a science and tech park, our role is to try and bridge the gap. Some of the interesting programs that we're bringing to help with the tech space is to have a virtual address system where someone may not necessarily be here physically by way of their business address, but they can also be part of the tech park by way of a virtual address. That way, they can have the credibility of the center to be able to win businesses offshore and say, oh, if I'm looking for this business, rather I'm going to look for him in, say, Kwashiman or Dansuman or Sochum, where the investor may think, I'm not quite sure about this location. If they say Accra Digital Center, that way it gives them a leverage to be able to attract that business, and we can also vouch for the authenticity and the trustworthiness of this client, subject to certain checks being done. We think that that's one of the leverages that, as a science and tech park, we can bring to help the industry as well.
So back to your question, how are we supporting entrepreneurs in Ghana? We have several workshops and, I should say, one-on-one sessions at iSpace with our community. And these sessions don't just go by, okay, what's your business model and well-structured. It's more of a conversation, trying to understand the needs of these startups. So that conversation is open to mentors of these startups. And you find out that some of the people actually break out, like they're crying, like this thing is so hard, like I never expected I'm going to be facing all these difficulties. But these are practical things that we do at iSpace that is like we lend our shoulders out to these people to help them to develop. And we make sure that they understand that these hurdles are not forever. They're just stages in your business. Another thing we've done so far since 2016, the Unlocking Women in Technology program, which is focused on developing women in Ghana to develop their ideas and actually kick up their businesses. We've supported other hubs in other locations just to extend our reach to several women who called out like, hey, you guys are doing great stuff in Accra, but how can we partake of this program in our region? So what iSpace did was to fund these hubs to actually implement these programs for 6 months. And after the result of this program, like most of the startups actually came to Accra to have a 3-month accelerator program after the training. We developed this initiative last year, All Startup Tour, where we took a bus and then we went to cities and campuses to have workshops with entrepreneurs during their SRC week. Because during the SRC week, if you're aware of it in Ghana, most of the startups or most of the entrepreneurs on campus actually have their exhibitions. And that was an opportunity for us to actually talk to them and let them understand the relevance of hubs and innovation spaces where they can take their ideas to the next level actually, and also interact with other entrepreneurs in our community. Code School is one other avenue that we've used to train developers and giving them the opportunity to get internship jobs in Ghana and outside Ghana. I was talking earlier about the kids program that we actually reached out to private universities and public universities, secondary schools to train these kids like on extracurriculum activities, to teach them with robotics and web development and 3D animation, but it's really been an issue getting access to the public schools. So we decided to tweak it a bit and actually reach out to parents. So we went door to door in the locality where we are situated and actually invited these kids to our hub. And in 6 months, some of these kids are building web solutions already and they're working on projects. And it's amazing how the parents are actually engaging their kids in these extracurriculum activities at iSpace.
So Gordon, I just wanted to chip in real quick. When it comes to panels, I'm not a believer that it should be a plug for what you do. I think we should keep it meta and have depth. On that question, there's someone on the panel that I think will be interesting to, because this is my view. In my adult life, I've seen the tech ecosystem grow incrementally. We are at a point where it needs a tipping to really bring the best together for exponential growth. Now the question comes back to what are the things we can do to make that tipping happen? And on this panel, there's a quasi-government agency on this panel talking about things that we did 5 years ago. Like in 2018, when we have opportunity for big resources and to do things that could actually tip this ecosystem, we can't have these same conversations that we had when I was 22 years old. So question is, in 2018, what can we do? When we say these other ecosystems have developed, they did some really important things that opened the entire ecosystem for growth. What are those things that we can do that will give opportunity for these young entrepreneurs that you're talking about, the stars that we're talking, to actually get exponential growth? I don't want to be part of this conversation 10 years and still be having this thing. So I think when we talk about what we can do to support is what can we unlock that could actually open doors for mass growth and access to everyone.
I think you're on point. I remember I was listening to a podcast with Kofi in iSpace, and he was talking about how at the time iSpace and Hub Accra, right, opening up the ecosystem, a lot of entrepreneurs coming through, and I think there was a question of where are they now, right? How much impact has been made in the space, and I think you're pointing to sort of this evolution in the building of the entrepreneurial ecosystems. You're talking about clusters, right? Building a cluster around the Osu Akwaje area. Is that 2.0, right? And how should ADC be sort of leapfrogging whilst also building a very strong tech park? I think those are all very interesting questions, but just before you answer, I'm going to try to open it up, but just to remind our audience. Don't do radio, by the way. We're talking about the insightful things that these hubs do that you probably won't read about, right? So if you are a MEST that has entrepreneurs coming from all over Africa, maybe you want to take them to a Brie and put them on a rope course and have them hang on these ropes and face their fears, because teamwork is important, right? If you're a Kofi Annan Center and you run experiments trying to figure out, you place women together for a time before the incubation period, before you mix them up and try different things, that'll be successful. If you're Senyo who lives globetrots and is probably in a different time zone, even though he's here in Ghana. You look at building clusters and taking it to the next level. ADC. People come to the airport and they want to see tech. They should be able to come to a place where it's a one-stop shop. There's grants. There's all these programs. There are entrepreneurs you can sort of work with. If you are iSpace, you have a therapy session with entrepreneurs, and it's okay to cry and do campus tours and probably even support the double track system. Sounds like that's what you were talking about at some point. SS1. Anyway, so very interesting concept. We want to open it up now whilst keeping that question still on the floor. Where are the mic runners? Okay.
AITI is big, right? AITI had a lot of impact in where we come today, right? You are 18 months old, probably doing similar stuff. Where is the collaboration? I don't see that. I don't see that. Impact Hub, global, franchise, you have more experience, there is, iSpace, right? Where is the collaboration? Maybe there is, I don't know. I want to know. MEST, groom people, help them sell their business, keep a chunk of their equity. That's nice, good. I like that. Where is the collaboration? So everybody is doing his own thing. And when we come on panel, we want to say our own things. Then we say we want to tip the thing. Like, where are we going? So tell me, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to address
okay. So
the collaboration bit is sometimes there's a lot of collaboration. I mean, AITI is like our big brothers in the tech space because we are sister agencies, and we do a lot of collaboration with them. For instance, when the National Youth Authority wanted to train people in e-commerce, we collaborated with AITI to draw up the training manual and everything else. So to make that training a world-class training. So there's a lot of collaboration, but we also have individual mandates. So ADC is not a training organization. AITI is. They are Ghana's foremost or West. In fact, they host West Africa's only mainframe in the whole of West Africa region. That's at AITI, and they have a mandate. They have an airline, or they have if you like, a core job. We also have a core job. There are places where we would, if you like, overlap. But where we have to overlap, we go straight to AITI boss, he's our senior brother, and say, we want to do this. We think that we need this input and we need this insight because we lack that requisite knowledge or expertise. And straight away, they come in and join hands and say, look, this is how we're going to help you. So we do a lot of collaboration. In terms of even the hubs, for instance, I mean, here now we have the Ghana Innovation Hub, which is going to be part of the 24 hubs we have around in the country. I know the hubs have a union, they have something like an association that they are trying themselves to build it up, to strengthen things. And ADC, even though a hub is more like a subset of what we do, we still join in their programs and ensure that we know what's going on in the hubs so that we don't have too many duplications. Because sometimes what you find is that you find entrepreneurs or young startups who trot from one hub to the next, looking for the same thing. And then in the end they have a pool of funds, and some of the funds become redundant. So you want to even ensure that how do you avoid one entrepreneur moving from one hub to the next, telling the same old stories, getting the same support, that doesn't yield much, because that opportunity could have been given to other entrepreneurs. So that collaboration is very much needed to even spot some of these trends, and we see that happen. And we working with the hubs to ensure that we know that, because the hub here at Ghana Innovation Hub, for instance, I talked about part of the grant funding. If you're going to get, let's say, because there are some startups that all they need, they're at the point where they've been in the system for, say, 3, 4, 5 years. All they need is some game changer, maybe some 50,000 USD to be able to go to the market, because they've gone to the acceleration program, they are just market ready. They just don't have that extra liquidity. So startups have different challenges. For some of them, it just may be giving them just a good location, and they can use that to move on to the next level. Others will just be the small funding of, say, 50 USD or 100,000 USD that can then push them to launch it. Yesterday we saw here that Kudigo launched his house here. I mean, Kudigo Penchom Tech is one of the clients of tenants of ABC. They've been here, we work with him. Okay. But he's now pushed the frontiers to Nigeria, where he's doing big things. He may not necessarily need the kind of funding that a hub would give to a startup. So sometimes there's a myriad of issues governing around these startups.
Okay, so it doesn't. This is getting so exciting, but then it doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of questions from you guys. Any more response?
To his point, that's exactly what I'm saying. That 6 years of work, this is the time to consolidate, right? This is not the time for replicating things that were done 6 years ago or 10 years ago. What is to his point is that we've all tried different experiments. We've seen what our strengths are, so let's make it best in class. People coming together and say, I'm great at this. I can bring in global investors. This guy says, I can train the people. Ashesi says, I can train next-gen leaders. Someone says, I can train the coders. And let's really build that ecosystem. And who is best placed to do that? Most of the time, it's not us. What's our incentive to do that? But if you have a government actor, that is where they are best placed to consolidate some of these things and find a way to incentivize to build collaboration, so that we can actually do that, build a true ecosystem in that sense. There's no reason for any individual private sector to do the heavy lifting to do that consolidation, but it's in government's interest to do that. So that's to his point. This is the point.
I would have to point.
Yeah.
Actually, to your point, to your question, what has been said already on this panel explains the problem and the solution, in my opinion. Right? We all have our individual mandates. None of us do the same thing. Okay. But in that, we get siloed. We get stuck in our, this is what we do. Okay? And we therefore don't access other points on the value chain that is all around us. This is a problem that pisses me off every day. Okay? Because I am personally, and with my team, responsible for helping to leverage other opportunities after people leave our program. Right? And that means every single organization represented on this panel, right? But I can tell you that although I know all of these individuals in name and title, this is the first time I'm meeting them for the most part.
Thank you, Amy.
But this is the thing. People get busy, okay? That's a big part of it. People compete when they don't need to compete. People are not always willing to get together at a table and start crossing things out and consolidating, okay? And finally, I spoke to Gordon and I spoke to Favor about this too, is with Ashesi and MEST, right, and also iSpace, we often haven't done anything together at a top level, but the individuals that we're working with are doing this at a grassroots level, right? So and it's almost a call to action to say we also rely on the initiative of the people who are the entrepreneurs to say, hey, it's very important that you go talk to these people because it will help me, and it will help you, and it will help your mandates.
Okay, just to add,
very quickly, okay.
When you say collaboration, what exactly do you mean?
You're asking a question.
Setting an agenda and coming together with different resources and doing something new.
Okay, because we
No,
can't.
do the same
This,
things over and
we are not doing the same thing. Like usually, we're not. So I
We'll
think,
talk about it.
but I think you should really like separate the whole ecosystem, because if iSpace is focused on social entrepreneurs, we're focused on grassroots entrepreneurs, and Ashesi University is focused on design thinking and trying to help these startups to actually design their products whatsoever. We collaborate, because I'm not going to be focused on developing business development classes for them or web development classes for them, and that's not my expertise. So I would have to collaborate with Ashesi University to have that design thinking sessions with them. So when you say collaboration, you really have to make it very, very clear.
Yeah, it's also a very good point, very good question to ask. Akosi, I think we need a boardroom session of this, so make that happen. But I think for me, the takeaway is that the pie is still really big. We still have a lot of work to do in the area of entrepreneurship in this country. So yes, there's some duplication, but there's still a lot of work to do that we can still be, be doing what we're doing and will make an impact. But the question of collaboration, I think, is a really important question, and it's rather unfortunate that we are out of time. But we'll continue the conversation. Thank you very much. That's why ABC is happening.